think I've pressed all the buttons. I think we're live on all the platforms. So, excellent. Good. Hi, everyone. My name is Will Critchlow. For those of you who don't know me, I imagine that everybody who's on these early streams does, in fact, know who I am. So we'll just dive right in. But yeah, I'm founder at SearchPilot, and I am interested in talking to you today about a whole bunch of different things. So, okay, we're just getting started with these live sessions. It's a new regular experiment in different content types. So if this has gone well from a technical perspective, it's currently available on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Might show up in the podcast feed eventually. I think probably the best experience should be YouTube, but we'll kind of see how we go. If you want to stay up to date, you can follow me. I'm at Will Critchlow on any social platform you care to name, but I'm most active on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Threads. And you can follow SearchPilot at SearchPilot and head to searchpilot.com to get on our email list. A lot of the resources I'm going to be talking about today are also going to be available at searchpilot.com/live, where you can also request a demo of SearchPilot if you're interested in that kind of thing. As I said, this whole thing is a bit of an experiment. So I also want to hear your feedback, what you like, not like. I plan to do different formats. Sometimes I'll be a guest, sometimes just solo. There might be some recurring themes and segments that we get into. But the main thing is weekly, here on a Tuesday afternoon for me, UK time, probably maybe sometimes a little bit later than this, but aiming for that 7, 8 a.m. time on the West Coast, 11ish on the East Coast, and mid-afternoon in the UK. So what have I got for you today? So today I've got a handful of new segments that might or might not become regular features. Today I learned some stuff I've learned about GA4 this week, some sneak previews of some things that we're building at SearchPilot and what we've learned as we've done that, particularly some Search Console stuff that I think might be interesting to the SEO audience, and some things about what I'm reading at the moment, which also has given reading and watching, which also has given me some lessons that I'm bringing to SearchPilot, SEO management, all those things. So that's lessons from The Bear on TV and from the book The Upside of Stress. But we're going to start at the techie end of things with something I just learned this week. So it all started with discovering that we had a discrepancy between this was at SearchPilot on our own website, a discrepancy between the data that we were seeing in HubSpot Analytics and what we were seeing in Google Analytics in GA4. So GA4 was much lower, and we kind of suspected our cookie consent banner. That was the first place we looked. But it did seem as though GA was firing. That hit was firing, albeit cookieless, so without a cookie getting set, even if you didn't accept cookies. So that didn't seem likely to be the source of a discrepancy in page views. But it was. And here's what you need to know about GA4 consent mode. So I don't know if everybody's heard of consent mode, but you have this ability in GA4 to turn on a mode called consent mode, which you do with a gtag function call. You set add_storage and analytics_storage. Set those variables to denied if you don't want to set cookies, and in fact it turns out more than that. But crucially, it doesn't set cookies on the user's browser. It's all about compliance, right? So if somebody says no, please don't set those cookies, then this turns them off. The interesting thing is it does still send data. So you will, if you inspect and look in the console, you will still see these events firing. You'll see page views and you'll see other events, and that data does go to Google, albeit cookieless, so they're not tied together to a particular user. But the thing is, it doesn't show up in GA4 anywhere at all right now, and hasn't for a few years. I found a post from Simo Ahava that I tweeted out that went into this from a couple of years ago, and it seems still the same way. I guess it's possible that this anonymized data is used somehow. It's also possible that in the future it'll be used more proactively to give you some insights into the non-cookie consenting percentage of your traffic that is out there, which we're pretty much blind to in GA4 at the moment. But anyway, the crucial thing is save you some debugging time. consent mode effectively avoids the tracking as well as turning off the cookie storage, even though it looks like it's sending those tags, those hits and those clicks to Google. So yeah, that was a bit of a techie thing. Less techie segment. So things I've been reading and watching recently. The first one I was going to talk about is The Upside of Stress. This is a book that was originally recommended to me by Will Reynolds, many of you may know, and he recommended it to me, I'm sorry to say, many times before I actually read it. And I think part of this is that it's got a really bad title for recommending it to people. And especially if you want to recommend it internally within a company, absolutely by far and away the worst thing about the book in terms of recommending it to co-workers, or especially people who work for you, is the title. Because The Upside of Stress, it just sounds like you're saying to your team, hey, would you just take on a little bit more stress for me, work a little bit harder, all these kinds of things. Actually, the book is really good. And if you suffer from any kind of anxiety, if you want to be better at dealing with stress, if you want to be higher performing generally, highly recommend the book. And a couple of things that I'm just going to pull out two particular lessons that I remember vividly from it, and the rest we can go into another time. But the first is, if we want to achieve great things, those things probably come with stress. We choose to do stressful things. That realization is useful and important. And probably more so is the reminder of that, reminding ourselves, hey, this is deliberate. I put myself in this situation because of the things I want to achieve. And I've certainly found that in my own life really useful, especially in a work context, to say, hey, there's some things I want to achieve. They're hard. They're going to require some degree of stress. And one of the examples they talk about in the book is, if you want to summit Everest, then it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to need to take on some difficulties. And they have this saying of, just another cold, dark night on the side of Everest. And kind of slightly gently making fun of the idea that if you're in this tent on the side of Everest, what did you expect? You signed up for this. And you're probably not sitting there thinking to yourself, man, this is such a hassle. I wish I wasn't so stressed right now. Like, stressed is not probably the word that you're going to be using about that. And actually reframing the stress is a big part of the lessons and the things that have stuck with me from reading this book. One part of it is just reframing some kinds of stress as excitement. Right? If you're feeling stressed about going on a live video call, for example, like this one, a live broadcast, you might have that feeling of butterflies, or that feeling of anxious energy. And you might feel, I'm stressed. I'm stressed because I've got to do this presentation today. Can you reframe that as, I'm excited to do this presentation today? Because actually the feeling is very similar. And I think anybody who's performed in various ways, whether it's on stage, whether it's a sporting event or whatever it might be, you've had that kind of nervous energy, that excitement building up before the tip, or before things kick off. And if you can frame that not as I'm stressed or I'm anxious, but as I'm excited, you get to reframe it. And final lesson from this bit is, we've all seen those academic studies talking about how dangerous stress is, how bad stress is for us, the health downsides of stress. It's worth remembering, almost all of those were done in experiments that were done in rodents, often mice, right? There's a great Twitter handle, there used to be, that just tweeted scientific studies with in mice appended to the end. So stress leads to reduced life expectancy in mice. The crucial thing is not the mice part, it's what do they mean by stress? And the stress that they put those animals under when they are doing those kinds of scientific studies is actually not what we mean by a stressful day at work for most white-collar workers. It's much closer to what we might mean by violence, domestic violence, torture, imprisonment. Like, they're doing things to the animals that are not at all like what we mean by stress. And of course, those things lead to reduced life outcomes. But actually, stress can be energizing when approached in the right way, with the right mindset, when you put yourself into that situation deliberately. Okay, enough about stress. Next one, that was what I was reading. What I'm watching, I've been watching The Bear. Don't know if anyone else has followed the show. I enjoyed season one, but we're partway through, most of the way through season two now, and so there's an episode, season six in episode, episode six in season two, which is called Fishes, which is probably the most anxiety-inducing hour of TV that I've ever seen, and that's not what I generally watch TV for. I'm watching for entertainment. So let's skip over that into episode seven, which is brilliant. One of my favorite bits of TV that I've seen recently. It's called Forks, and in this episode, I don't think there's any real spoilers here. We get a glimpse into what it takes to deliver elite restaurant service. You know, I'm talking 3 Michelin star level uh, restaurant service, and it's just brilliantly done. I'm an absolute sucker for TV shows about people doing hard jobs exceptionally well. Probably why I'm a big West Wing fan and Aaron Sorkin in general. But I'm interested in this. Bring it back to the live stream context. I'm interested in this because at SearchPilot we're focusing on being the enterprise offering in the SEO testing space. We want to work with the biggest teams, the most advanced teams, the biggest websites, and to do that, we've got to figure out a level of service that goes above and beyond. And our professional services team is phenomenal, and I'm a big fan of working with all of them. But this has been giving me some little hooks and some things that I'm going to pay some more attention to. And in particular, it's put one thing on my reading list, which is at one point you see the character carrying around this bright yellow book called Unreasonable Hospitality, which has made its way straight onto my reading list. So this is something that I'm definitely going to check out. And it's part of the story that is behind the story of this episode. But partly it's about seeing what folks are capable of in these unreasonable situations. But from an entertainment perspective, what I love about this show, or this episode rather, is I just love seeing Richie, the character, wake up earlier and earlier. So you see this sequence of him starting with him snoozing his alarm, and each day getting better at getting out of bed until it ends up with him leaping out of bed before his alarm even goes off at 5:30 in the morning. And I just feel like this is like a Rocky montage, but for enterprise professional services. So if that sounds like your thing, you should check it out. I realize it's a little niche. Okay, next segment, I want to talk about some sneak previews, some things that we're working on at SearchPilot to help with better, more effective SEO testing. We're building faster than we ever have, I feel like. I saw a great post from one of the Wistia founders, Chris Savage, the other day, talking about the cadence of releasing of new features that they've been up to. And I feel like it's true at SearchPilot as well. We're dialing in that product development process, and we've got some great new features coming very soon. In fact, the first one I want to talk about today is already live for our customers, which is Googlebot tracking data. And this is super cool and allows kinds of analysis that just haven't been possible previously. And what happens is when you come into a test analysis section in your test dashboard, and you have a running test or a finished test, you can see alongside the data that shows how the test itself is performing, we also now have this Googlebot crawl insights data, which you can choose your what kind of Googlebot you want to see, and the default view shows you what percentage of all of the organic traffic that's going to this site section is going to pages that have been recrawled since the test was launched, and over time. So you can see a kind of gradually increasing trend where you can tell how many of those pages have been recrawled. And I think this is the most important data point that we can get from Googlebot data as it relates to SEO testing, because this is so powerful for understanding whether a test should have reached any kind of conclusion yet. Until enough pages have been recrawled, it's really unlikely that you'll be able to detect anything interesting. And so one way of thinking about enough pages recrawled is to think about, well, how much of the traffic is going to pages that have been recrawled and therefore could have the influence of the change. But we can also look at raw pages recrawled, so which is a lower number, obviously, because there's this huge long tail of very rarely crawled pages or less frequently crawled pages that get very small amounts of traffic. So they're probably not important to the overall test, but you might want to know, okay, how are we doing? What percentage of those? And we can dive deeper into exploring individual pages that have been crawled and download the bucket of CSV URLs and so forth. So that's the first feature that I want to talk about, and it's really cool, and it's there now. And so if you haven't seen this yet, you should definitely get on to our team and have a demo. Speaking of which, if you go to searchpilot.com/live, a bunch of the resources that I'm talking about from the SearchPilot website are collected in one place there, and it also gives you a form where you can get in touch with our team. And if you'd like to hear more about or chat more about your actual own SEO testing program at your organization, or get a demo of SearchPilot, then that form is the best way of doing that. So the next feature I was going to talk about is Google Search Console integration. And I think this is probably our most requested new feature. We mainly focus on the business benefits of SEO tests, and most of what we do is focusing on how do those tests pan out as it relates to actual business performance. And normally that means conversions, and it means traffic to the website. But sometimes you want to debug and understand why a particular test is a winner or a loser, and not just get the aggregate data that says, on average, this is how much better off you are. And here's where this upcoming beta comes in. So when this launches, you'll be able to debug any significant test in the platform to see the differences in ranking changes and click-through rate changes between the control and variant groups of pages. And so that lets us debug and analyze, okay, for this winning test, to what extent is it as a result of ranking for new keywords, ranking better for existing keywords, or getting better click-through rates in the positions that we're already ranking? And yeah, sometimes it'll be a blend of those things, but you can get some sense of how those stack up. And rankings and click-through rate, they don't pay the bills. But analyzing this data is, as I say, a top feature request. And I think it's important for trust in the platform and the ability to be able to explain and demonstrate the work that you're doing as an SEO team out to the broader organization and show that you're really on top of your game and understanding what's going on. So I'm excited to get this in our customers' hands. But one of the things that this piece of work has done, so just even getting to the point of building this up and getting ready to launch it, is that it's validated actually our original focus on on-site data, analytics data, and so forth, because it's quite shocking to see all the problems with Search Console data. I talked about a couple of these in the past, but the first is averaging click-through rate and rankings results in terrible metrics. I feel like there's innovation needed in how to analyze aggregates of these things, because we see both of those metrics moving in odd ways as you start ranking or stop ranking for terms that previously appeared in that data, because the set of things you're averaging over changes. So that's part of the problem. We're, on our part, endeavoring to improve this by averaging only within ranges, and ultimately maybe by trying to compare more like with like. But I'd love to see this done better. So that's an overall problem with the general approach. Bigger problem is that the data is so sparse. So we're seeing surprisingly few of the paths that we know are getting organic data and organic visibility. We're seeing surprisingly few of those paths showing up in Search Console data. And so I guess that's the punchline of this part, is we have this feature coming, it's going to be great, but you definitely can't rely on Search Console data as your primary analysis source for SEO tests. You'll get misled and you'll get erroneous results. And so I think it's useful as a debug tool, an explanation tool for tests where you've already done the analysis in the kind of normal way. But just be super cautious if this is a primary data source for you and your team. And finally, the third feature I want to talk about is a new deployment model for SearchPilot. So as you may know, we deploy server-side, and that enables us to run tests that appear both in the served HTML as well as in client-side JavaScript and so forth. We now have a new cross-platform CDN edge worker version. Bit of a mouthful. So if you're running Cloudflare, for example, we have a Cloudflare worker compatible version of SearchPilot, meaning we can deploy natively into the edge. And this has all kinds of benefits, but particularly beneficial in getting InfoSec and engineering and operations teams on board and signing off on working with SearchPilot. So if you've wanted to work with us, but those have been blockers, then get in touch and give me a shout, and we'd love to talk to you about that in more detail. So the main thing there is probably if you're on Cloudflare or some other similar platform that has compatible worker technology, then we can deploy right into the edge, and that can be great for those teams as well. So I think probably time to wrap up. Been rambling on for a little while. We've done a couple of different segments, things I've learned, things I'm watching, things I'm learning about, and as well as things that we're building and things that we're working on at SearchPilot. So I'm just going to finish with the final commercial little bits of saying, obviously part of the reason that I'm doing this is it's not just for fun, but is to hopefully help more folks to hear about SearchPilot and ultimately get in touch and get to see it in action, and hopefully we can get to work with more of you, find people. And so just a call to say, we're building these dashboards that enable our customers to, for each individual on-site SEO change, they get to see, do we have confidence about whether this was beneficial or not? Can we quantify the value of those changes? We can look at traffic impact and conversion rate impact. And as we do all of that, and as we get this data together, including some of the other data that I've talked about today, we get the kind of confidence that is so powerful within an organization for getting engineering team buy-in, for getting executive team to understand the work that you're doing and value the work that you're doing. And if this is of interest to you, then as I said earlier, please head on over to searchpilot.com/live, where you can find various resources that might be useful to you. Customer story about the great results that we have got for one of our customers. You'll also find a PDF download. We call it a one-pager. I think it's a couple more than one page, but that's fine. Where you can find which you can use yourself as well as share with other people in the team as you need it, as well as links to our test results, our back catalogue of tests, as well as a link to sign up to the email list and get a new test result in your inbox every 2 weeks. So head on over here at searchpilot.com/live. You can get access to all of these resources, as well as having a form where you can fill in your details, and we will be in touch to set up a personalized demo and a chance to chat about the SEO A/B testing program that you have going on in your organization. So thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be doing these as a regular thing every Tuesday afternoon UK time, Tuesday morning in the US, and it's early days. I would love your feedback. Which segments have you enjoyed? What do you want more of? What would you like me to cover next time? My name is Will Critchlow. You can find me at Will Critchlow on all the social platforms, and SearchPilot is at SearchPilot and searchpilot.com. Thank you. It's been a blast. Love hearing your feedback. Please do send it over.